I was very set on apprenticeships. I applied to like 60 different apprenticeships. So I was very set on the route I wanted to go down. I think there is a lot of a sort of stigma behind it that we're going to need, like babying and that we don't know anything and that sort of thing. But the truth is far from that. Solicitors only have sort of that 2 years to really grow it into their seats and into the firm, whereas we have 6 years to do that. So I'd say the investment that they put into us is so meaningful. And we, as apprentices, will sort of be the people who are going to rise through the ranks when we qualify, and we would like to do that at the firms we train at.
Hello and welcome to another episode of Becoming a Lawyer. Today I'm joined by Oli Ascott, a first-year solicitor apprentice with Dentons. He's currently building his experience in corporate law and is committed to advocating for diversity, equality and inclusion and mental health awareness. He has spent a lot of time volunteering and sharing his views on mental health support and creating an inclusive environment for students. He's passionate about DEI and pursuing his career within the legal industry. Without further ado, Oli, how are you?
I'm doing well. Busy day at work today, but very excited to be here.
I'm glad. And we'll jump straight into it. So today's podcast, we're going to be talking about the apprenticeship, the route broadly, and Oli's thoughts on this non-traditional route and how it's benefiting him, looking ahead and where he sees his career taking him, and the practical benefits that come from being an apprentice. So Oli, if you had to sum up your legal journey so far in one sentence, how would it be?
I would say it's not been as I expected, but I have grown so much as a person since I joined Dentons, and I've had so much experience in the department I'm in at the moment that has been quite instrumental to, the development of my legal knowledge, and sort of, the extracurriculars that I've been involved in have also been able to allow me to grow as a person, which has been great.
Yeah, it must be very different to your traditional A-level studies, just reading books day in, day out.
Exactly.
So why did you choose the apprenticeship route and how did that decision impact you today?
Yeah, so I always was a more hands-on person. Started work when I was 15. I started working in a local cafe. I then moved on to work in a local cocktail bar, which I was at for about 2 years. From that, I was doing, being anywhere between 25 to 35 hours a week at this cocktail bar, alongside school and A-levels. And it was the aspects of the independence that I got from that. I was able to, have my own financial freedom. I was able to gain skills in teamwork, in being able to communicate with other people, and it allowed me to really grow as a person, mature as a person, and sort of understand more about the value of money, and about the value of sort of a job at the time, instead of completely locking into A-level study. So for me, I wasn't prepared to do another 2-3 years in university saddled with like 60-70 grand's worth of debt to become a lawyer. So I was more ready to just go straight into it and not have to do full-time study for another 3 years. So for me, it just seemed more like the logical route that would sort of fit my skill set.
Yeah, and I'm sure a lot of us trainees and graduate apprentices that finish our degrees are very jealous of the fact that you're not starting with debt. It's not one of the best things you want to start your career with, but unfortunately a lot of us are in that position where we've come out of uni and there's a lot of debt and pressure to land a good paying job that's going to help us pay off that debt. But looking at some of the skills you spoke about, the soft skills, teamwork, managing your finances, budgeting, and those translating into the application process for an apprenticeship. So how did those experiences help you in the application process? And what were some of the biggest challenges you faced?
Yeah, so I think having soft skills and being able to have examples where you've shown those soft skills was so instrumental to me being able to get this apprenticeship. I mean, the work that I did when I worked at the cocktail bar was so, you go into that sort of work and you go in because you want to meet new people and you want to, earn a little bit of money on the side while studying. The skills that you sort of gain from that, dealing with conflict, dealing with, customers who might be a bit more challenging to deal with than others, dealing with people in your team who may have conflicting views to you. There's so much that goes on behind the scenes and that you don't see. So having those soft skills and having the ability to develop them in a professional setting was really important, because you can then just transfer those over to a job like this, where I'm able to now work in a team and I'm able to have those conversational skills with people, and have more of an idea of what to do with the money that comes in. And in the application process, it's exactly what they're looking for. They're looking for people to have a diverse range of scenarios, not just say, like, if I just said about the things I did at the cocktail bar, it would be a bit of a closed door, I guess. In a way, they want to see a diverse range. So I had things that I'd done for volunteering with mental health services. I had done some charity work. All of these things come together to build your strong application. And it's where you get those skills from a variety of different places that is really helpful. Challenge-wise, it's difficult to pinpoint exactly the right scenarios for each question that they give you. I remember for me it was having a list of the different scenarios that I had during interviews and things, and being like thinking when they ask the question which one goes best, but you don't always pick sort of the best one, because the questions can be quite narrow in their scope. And I definitely slipped up on a couple of those questions, which they're designed to make you think and make you pick the right scenario. And these soft skills can't always be the be all and end all in certain application processes, where you're expected to know certain legal knowledge and expected to be able to apply different scenarios to things. And that's where I sort of struggled, because I knew sort of I had the soft skills, but being able to then do sort of the application sort of work was a little bit more difficult.
And I think these firms are not looking for someone who's perfect and is has got every single skill out there. And then it also comes down to researching the right firm for you, which leads me on to my next question. How did you decide Dentons would be the right place for you to pursue an apprenticeship?
Yeah, so I think going from the start, I attended an open day in year 12 at Dentons. It was the first time I had heard of solicitor apprenticeships. And then I attended the same open day in year 13. So I had a good idea of the firm, and what the firm stood for. For me, on like more of a personal level, as a queer man, I wanted a firm who would value inclusivity, had sort of an LGBT movement, also sort of valued the diverse views of others. So that was really important for me when looking at firms. And there were certain firms that I looked at where I wasn't so confident in that aspect as being a priority. Whereas Dentons, when I spoke to some of the associates and some of the leads of the inclusivity drive here, it really put my mind at ease about how valued that is here. So for that reason, Dentons was a big draw for me, alongside some of the more international work that you get here, being the world's biggest law firm. There is so much scope for you to go on international secondments and work with international clients and international teams and Dentons teams across the globe. So having that scope and being able to do that international work was really important for me as well.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you bring up a great example of personal traits and characteristics that you have and interests that you have that you've sort of found in a firm and then went to proceed and apply there. So it's not simple as, I've got a bunch of skills, let's try and chuck them at every single firm out there. It's trying to identify that firm, and which you did by attending the events, speaking to people within the firm and seeing whether the cultural vibe in the firm matches what you're after, which is obviously going to benefit you when you are applying for those firms, because it's a firm that that you can see yourself at. Moving on to being an apprentice now, so you've secured the apprenticeship. How do you think you're perceived within a firm? How did you find settling into the firm as an apprentice, someone without having gone down that traditional route of going uni, getting a law degree, and then going into a legal career?
I think it is difficult. I think you definitely come in with a lot of imposter syndrome. I think coming into my team, so my team's a very big team, there's sort of 80 or 90 of us, and we have about 7 trainees, and then it was sort of me and a fifth year apprentice. So the fifth year apprentice sort of was able to integrate into the sort of the trainee cohort. So I did find it difficult to sort of find my place in such a big team and being so young and inexperienced. That being said, people are very receptive of apprentices here. They're very receptive of the fact that you've just come out of school, and they don't ignore you on that basis. They take you in, and they want you to be trained and want you to try out different things, which was great, and it really put me at ease. The first month or two, it was more in my head than the people around me, which it was always going to be difficult coming into a firm at such a young age and being the youngest person, at corporate events, and in the office. I still get it sort of all the time. I'm at like corporate events with people who are qualified, and they're like, "How old are you?" And I'm like, 19. You do get that sort of all the time, but it just sort of shows it and comes back to the fact that we are so young coming into a profession that is so well established, and it is great that we are able to have this opportunity, and you are really well looked after. The early careers teams and supervisors, everyone is looking out for you, and sort of no one's out to get you, which took me a sort of while to integrate that into my mind, that the vision that I might have had of law firms and that environment beforehand isn't sort of exactly how it is in reality.
Yeah, 100%. And you speak about experiences you've had with different teams, recruitment teams, and they're also welcoming, regardless of your age, and they're there to support your journey. And a lot of these senior people want to see you progress and want, take pride in the fact that there's a young person within the firm, and they're privileged to have a young person who could potentially progress through the ranks. And there's a sort of satisfaction in seeing someone young progress and building that relationship with them. So being an apprentice, what would you say to firms that are still hesitant about embracing apprentices?
I would say that there's so much that we can add. I think there is a lot of a sort of stigma behind it that we're going to need, like babying, and that we don't know anything and that sort of thing. But the truth is far from that. I think we are able to do a lot of the things that trainees do, and we're able to learn a lot as we go. And we do bring sort of a long-term investment to law firms. We're there for 6 years. They're able to train us and really bring us up inside the firm. So we have a direct knowledge of the firm's culture. We're embedded in that culture from day one. And that way we're so well equipped to contribute meaningfully from literally day one, and having sort of the ability to grow alongside solicitors who are highly capable, who know how to train people. Trainee solicitors only have sort of that 2 years to really grow it into their seats and into the firm, whereas we have 6 years to do that. So I'd say the investment that they put into us is so meaningful. And we, as apprentices, will sort of be the people who are going to rise through the ranks when we qualify, and we would like to do that at the firms we train at. So it is that sort of long-term investment, that ability that we have to integrate into the firm's culture, and they in a way they can shape us into what they want for their clients, in the seats that we're in. So I would say that it's well worth the gamble. I wouldn't call it a gamble, but it's well worth the investment that they put into it.
As a young person, you're generally less resistant to change. So firms can sort of mold you into how they'd like you to be, into the cultures they believe are good cultures and environments to build. And also you can influence that, having been through lots of change, and different experiences from a young age. You bring a sort of fresh approach to things. And it leads me quite nicely onto my next question about being a young lawyer. How does that influence the way you approach law and client work within the firm?
Yeah, so I think there's definitely an advantage that we have as young lawyers coming into sort of a sector that's evolving. We bring comfortability in sort of technology, and being able to use things like AI and use things like even DocuSign. There's partners who say, like, to some of the young lawyers in the team, they're like, "Oh, can you do this DocuSign?" Because they don't know how to use it. So, like, that we do bring that sort of focus as well, that ability to be sort of in line with tech advancements. I would also say, like, we have sort of grown up in such a changing world. Like, when I was born. So I was born in 2005. You've got the introduction of like mobile phones. You've got AI taking off. You've got like the internet taking off. Like there's so much that has happened as we've grown up that we sort of have that ability to adapt a little bit better, and we're able to sort of quickly process the new information and sort of adapt to the new technology that comes around. I use AI like daily in the work that I do, and I think that having an understanding and being able to use that is really important. I'd also say on sort of the last point, like I think our generation is a lot more in tune with the importance of diversity and inclusion and the importance of social mobility. So I think that does bring also a competitive edge to firms, that we're able to focus on the idea that law can be a lot more diverse than it is at the moment, and that we can have more diverse backgrounds and in turn opinions, that shape sort of how we view client needs and how we can meet client needs with a wide range of opinions from people from different backgrounds.
Yeah, for sure. And it takes me on to another question about the advantages and what would be the biggest advantage that young lawyers have when starting their careers? So would you say it's their ability to sort of integrate with tech and AI and be one with it in a way? Would you say it's the ability to embrace diversity and be at the front of that?
I would say in terms of client needs, I think being able to adopt AI and being able to adopt new technology is a huge advantage to us as lawyers for productivity, and efficiency. So, being able to take a task that might have taken an hour before, use AI efficiently and make sure that it's sort of obviously doing all the right things that it should be doing, and cutting that task down to a 20-minute task. We're then able to put out client work quicker. Clients are able to, not pay as much for that task. And all around, it's a win-win. So I think coming in as a young lawyer and being able to integrate into that new sort of evolving technology space, is a real advantage for lawyers and for clients.
Yeah, absolutely. And how do you see non-traditional routes changing the future makeup of law firms? Do you see a growing trend in in apprenticeships being offered?
Yeah, 100%. I mean, like when I think Dentons started theirs like 8 years ago, there might have been maybe 3 or 4 firms offering the apprenticeship route. Fast forward to when I was applying, maybe we had 70 odd firms in London, maybe about 50 to 70 odd firms in London offering apprenticeships, and it was about 100 spaces in the city. But this year they've got 150 spaces in the city with city century law firms. So I think it's growing massively, and it will probably grow a lot more as more firms are picking it up and it gains that popularity. But it's been shown to be successful. We've had lawyers qualify into teams here at Dentons after the apprenticeship, and these lawyers are top quality lawyers. So I think that it will only get more and more, but I think coming with that, it'll only get more and more competitive for applicants as well.
Yeah, for sure. So with that with the increase in apprenticeships, there's of course more tools and resources out there to support young people in securing apprenticeships, far more than there would have been when apprenticeship programs were fairly new. So how did programs like City Century support yourself in securing apprenticeships, and how do you think people can use initiatives like City Century to support themselves?
Yeah, so I think the work that City Century does is very important. I think the way that I was able to connect with more people in the legal industry was through a City Century event, their City Century like live events that they do. I remember going to that one when I was in year 13, and being able to sort of talk to employers and talk to people directly who are doing sort of the selection process in these roles was really important. I think sort of all the online work that they do as well, it just creates more of a picture for aspiring solicitor apprentices to understand what it is that we do, and sort of understand if it's the route for them, because I think in that way they can have a greater understanding of what it is they're applying for, and then that's just going to make their applications feel be more strong, because they're going to know exactly what they're applying for. I think there's a lot of work to be done, of course, on the awareness of solicitor apprenticeships, but City Century being able to bring together how many law firms it has and to continue growing it is really great, and it's really nice to see.
Yeah, definitely. And I'd encourage lots of young people to get involved with initiatives like that, and I'm sure there's many others out there that do support young lawyers and help them network with professionals within the industry. And of course, like you mentioned at the start of the podcast, attending the Dentons events and career fairs are what allowed you to build a connection with the firm and decide whether it's the right place for you. And I think it's one of the first steps you should be taking in your journey for applying for apprenticeships or training contract or whatever it be, because it's an important step in identifying the firm that's right for you.
100%.
So what advice would you give to someone weighing up university against an apprenticeship or other routes? And I know you haven't attended university, but I'm sure you've got friends that are going.
Yeah, so I think, I mean, for me, it was like I was very set on apprenticeships. I applied to like 60 different apprenticeships, so I was very set on the route I wanted to go down. But I do think it is a very subjective choice. I think some people will be a lot more suited to university. I think some people will be a lot more suited to apprenticeships. So it sort of does depend on the sort of the person that you are. But I would say, you know, the apprenticeship route is a tough route. It's not sort of like the easy way out. It's not, you know, anything that should be considered to be easier than a law degree. If anything, it might be harder. I think you need to have the fundamental sort of soft skills to be able to thrive in a role like a solicitor apprenticeship. So I would say to someone who is, you know, weighing up the options, like thinking about what it is that they want from, you know, the next 3 years of their life, if they're considering uni, sort of what is it that you want? Do you want to sort of go to uni, you know, make friends around your age, you know, be able to, you know, have the freedom to go out, have the freedom to, you know, go to lectures, not go to lectures, you know, do that sort of thing? Or do you want to, you know, really knuckle down in a job, earn money, and, you know, have no debt and that sort of thing, but come into a really professional environment? You know, I think it is a completely subjective choice, but one that is really, could be really important for people. I mean, I was so set on an apprenticeship. I was, you know, I wanted to go into work, and I knew that, but I know some people don't have that, you know, directness, and they do weigh up the two. But I would say, yeah, you need to weigh up what's going to be best for you, where you think you'll fit in the best, and what's going to be, you know, the best for your long-term future.
Yeah, for sure. And so broadly speaking, what type of people and what type of characteristics, what type of traits and even experiences do you think generally would make someone better suited for an apprentice rather than the university route?
So I think to have like the foundational skills, a part-time job is great. A part-time job will give you so much. I know a lot of the apprentices here did have part-time jobs before they joined the firm, and I think it does aid your applications a lot, and I've seen sort of the transferable skills come into play when I've been here. I would say, you know, you need to be able to have conversations with people, you know, be confident in doing so, but also saying that was something that I did struggle with when I sort of was coming into the law firm, is that I found networking very difficult, and it's something that I've developed a lot over the past year. Being able to speak to people and be able to be confident in asking questions is increasingly important. Being able to work as a team, I mean, you know, you're always going to be in teams here, no matter what you're working on. You're always going to have a team, and being able to take feedback, you know, critical feedback in a constructive way, I think is really important, because, you know, you're coming in without any, you know, prior knowledge. You're going to get things wrong. You're going to get things very wrong. And, you know, that's okay. And associates, you know, see that as being okay. But you need to be able to take on that feedback and then next time apply it to the task. So I think that's really important. And I think it's really important to have good communication skills. You know, you've got to be able to communicate when, you know, you're feeling that your capacity is, you know, being met, and that you can't, you know, give any more. You know, I think when I started at Dentons, I really wanted to get involved in everything. It's not always the wise choice, because then you become overrun with everything. So being able to say no, being able to, you know, step back from things, and having the confidence to do that is also really important.
How do you balance studying at the same time as well as working in a very demanding role?
Yeah, so I mean, how the apprenticeship works, we get the Monday off and we work Tuesday to Friday. The Monday is for studying. I can confidently say over the past year that the Monday has never been enough to just study. We have a 2-hour lecture on the Monday, and we have we get given like a pack of PowerPoints to go through for the week, and we have like an application task as well that we're given, and that's sort of the uni work for the week. So it's difficult to juggle, especially when you are so busy with work at on different matters, and a lot of the time that'll take priority. There have been times where I've wanted to be able to study in the evenings and some of the weekends, but I haven't been able to because obviously work takes priority. You have to be very motivated to be able to balance the study with the working. You have to find your little pockets of space to catch up, and you have to make sure you're ahead, because as soon as you fall behind 1 week, 2 weeks, then it becomes a lot to catch up again. So staying on top of it is really important, and I've found that it's easiest for me when I'm putting in the work, on weekends. I'm sitting down and I'm like, this is what I'm going to do today, making a plan, and making sure I'm aware of what I'm going to do that week. So making sure I know what needs to be done, and making sort of a schedule for that week to understand that, on Monday I'm going to, do X, Y, Z, and then throughout the week I'm going to try and get, things done. But it is so unpredictable. Like, as you say, it's, on paper it's great. You're getting paid, you're getting a free degree, but there is a graft that does need to go into it, and it definitely shouldn't be considered as an easy route, because you even like in your first year, when you're on a deal, there are tasks that need to be done and need to be done well, and there is that expectation on you that you do that, and then there is the expectation that you juggle uni on top of that, which can be difficult, but you do sort of work it out, and they give you a lot of time for revision at the end of the module. So if you do fall behind, then you are able to sort of catch up in that time as well.
Yeah, definitely. Staying on the topic of difficulties and challenges, I know you're currently in the corporate seat, is that right? Yeah. So, and I understand that you're going to be rotating through different seats on the apprenticeship. So
Yes.
when I was at uni, I got a taste of a range of areas of law. So you had your foundational modules, your contracts, stuff like that. And then you pick optional modules and you get a taste of different areas of law. Whereas for you, you would have done your A levels. And then at that stage, you would have sort of been thinking about, whilst you were doing your A levels, you would have been thinking about what areas of law might interest you, or, what specialties your certain firms had. And you would have sort of had a rough idea of where you want to go. So how was it? How was the process of deciding what area of law you want to go into and what sort of seats you want to pick? And what advice have you got for people that are in your position or would have been in your position a year ago, that are uncertain about making that decision of, I want to go into law and I want to pick these seats?
Yeah, so I would say the biggest thing is research. Research everything. Research the firm, research their specialties, research, what it is that a corporate lawyer does, what it is that an employment lawyer does. I think we'll all have sort of inherent, things that we're interested in and things that, are important to us. For me, I found, employment matters very interesting. So when I was applying and when I was looking into different firms, I sort of looked for that and looked at different employment cases and thought, how can I then relate that into my applications? There are questions in some application processes that ask you to think about how recent events have influenced sort of law firm business, and from that you're able to take sort of different things that have happened in the world. So for me, I picked the war in Russia and Ukraine was quite prevalent at the time that I was applying, and you can bring that conflict into so many law firm departments. So, for example, with M&A, say for example, firms might be less likely when energy prices are skyrocketing. They may be less likely to want to invest in doing expansions and things like M&A, because they have these sky high bills that they can't afford to go through with these M&A transactions. So there is so much that you can research, and things that are in the news now that you can bring back to law firm departments, and how it will affect law firm business and how it will affect businesses in in the UK. So I think that there is a lot of research that you can do as an applicant and as someone who's interested in this, and that will give you sort of a fresh perspective that a lot of people don't have. And I think that is something that did give me an edge in the application process, is that I sort of was able to research a lot and was able to sort of know how things that are going on in the world relates to the role that I would be coming into. And how I'll see those the changes in the world in the work that I do. So I think, as someone who might be wanting to apply, make sure that you can do as much research into the things that interest you as possible. But I'd also say, like, you don't know everything, and I'm very much like, I am going to rotate through my 8 seats. I'm going to pick things that I think are going to interest me, but I don't have a clear idea of where I'm going to end up or where I want to end up, So I think it's okay to have that thing in your mind where it's just like, you just don't know, but you want to, and you want to try everything, and you want to be able to have that sort of willingness to go into everything, try things. And people have said to me, trainees who have said they thought they would hate corporate, and then they've gone into corporate and they've loved it. So your opinion can change as well. Yeah, I'd have an open mind.
Yeah, for sure. And I think you mentioned towards at the start of your answer about focusing in and researching into whatever your inherent interests are, looking deeper into it and seeing if it really aligns with what you want to do. And in applications, it is really important to be specific, because that piece of paper and that answer you're going to write can sometimes be the only thing someone knows about you. And it's so important to be specific. And the only way you're going to be specific is by having done that research and tailoring that answer to yourself and asking yourself hundreds of questions before you even write down the answer to that one question.
Exactly.
So yeah, I totally agree with that point. And like you say, at the end of the day, you're young lawyers. No one's going to expect you to be 100% certain about where you're going to be. There's people that are far older than us that are still unsure about what area of law they want to be in, or if they're happy with what they're looking for. And being someone who's just finished their A-levels or someone who's just come out of uni, no one sort of expects you to know exactly where you want to be. But it is, like you say, that willingness to learn, being curious and knowing, and being willing to find out what you're going to be interested in, and taking on challenges and really pushing yourself to your limits to see if that's something that you can see yourself progressing in the next 10, 15, 20 or whatever number of years.
Yeah.
And so moving on to our final topic, social mobility and inclusion. So Oli, now that you've spent a year in Dentons, what do you think law firms can do to ensure that diversity and inclusion aren't just buzzwords but realities? And what gives you hope about the direction that the legal industry is heading in?
Yeah, so I think difficult for law firms to have a massive diversity focus. I think, law in the past has been very much sort of a route for a certain type of person. And I think now it's sort of opening up and it's sort of allowing people from diverse backgrounds to give their opinions, because we're starting to value that more, especially, with this sort of apprenticeship route. Social mobility is so important. I was speaking to one of the co-chairs of City Century about social mobility at an event that I went to, and she was saying how important it is for them to increase the amount of people from working class backgrounds coming into the legal profession, because they haven't had that opportunity before. I think in terms of what law firms can do is when looking into hiring decisions, is treating everyone equally. It's such a baseline. But it needs to be said, and it needs to be considered that everyone should begin on an equal footing, because I don't think they have in the past. And I think a lot of the importance to me was the importance of being visible, being active allies. If I'm thinking about myself as a queer individual and as someone who was very skeptical about coming into a law firm, being queer, I was very open and honest with myself, and I am very open with my sexuality, but coming into a law firm, I didn't know what to expect. And, I voiced that concern to someone in the firm who was the head of responsible business here. And she had a call with me alongside the leader of the LGBT network at the time. And, they reassured me about the culture here at Dentons. And I think it's just small things like that, being able to to reassure people that they can be their full selves at work. And I guess that is the kind of like a buzz sentence, but it is true. You need to create that environment. I've never sort of felt like at Dentons that I, couldn't, express something that, might identify me as queer or something like that, which has been great. And I've had some really meaningful conversations with associates about my experiences of, being bullied in school and coming out and that sort of thing. And it's really refreshing to be able to have those conversations with people who are quite influential in these firms, and to see the open minds that they sort of have to these new sort of inclusive practices, I guess. But I think social mobility is so important, and I think law firms are starting to grasp onto it, especially with the apprenticeship route. They promote social mobility through that, and I went to an event not so long ago by the 93% Club, which was really telling, and it was really great to hear a lot of the voices of people who are from working class backgrounds, who have made it in the legal profession, and seeing some of the statistics that they found on law being not that great, not that socially mobile, was really interesting actually, and showed that there is work to be done. But I think there's a huge increase in the amount of people who are coming into law who are from diverse backgrounds, who are working class or from different parts of the world, and it's great to see. It's really refreshing to see, and I hope that we can sort of continue in that way.
Yeah, and I do think there is a lot of change going on, and it's heading in the positive direction. We are seeing, like you say, meaningful conversations happening in the office and workplace, and giving people the confidence to be themselves, them full selves at work. And that's the sort of environment you want to create. And although the statistics might not be as great as they could be, it is heading in the right direction, with apprenticeships opening so many doors for people that would have struggled to get their foot within the legal industry. And the sort of change that social mobility and diversity is going to bring isn't something that's going to happen overnight. And we're seeing the gradual improvements with, like you say, from your personal experiences, having conversations with people within the firm, and making you feel good about yourself, and supporting that individuality of people and allowing them to be themselves within the workplace. And it's all positive and great stuff.
Yeah, and all I would add to that is that when you come in as an apprentice, there's so much opportunity within the sort of diversity and inclusion space. I think, when I joined, I was like straight into the LGBT network, and there was so much opportunity there. And I'm now sort of a core part of that. You're able to organize events, to find partnerships, but the biggest thing for me was being able to network with people in the firm outside of my department. And I think that was so important for my development as someone, coming in from A levels. I was able to speak to, not just lawyers, but, people in HR, people in clients and markets, these people who are coming together with sort of a shared agenda, but also people with such different perspectives, different jobs, and you learn so much from them. And in that way, there's like, you'll go to an event and maybe you won't know that many people there, but you'll know sort of people from these sort of networks, which has been great. And it's really allowed me to expand my network in that way with people who are passionate about, inclusivity and social mobility.
Yeah, 100%. And thanks for bringing up that topic about the different opportunities to become part of societies. And it's sort of similar to when you're at uni, there's so many different societies and clubs and stuff like that you can join, whether they're sports, whatever they are. And it's people from, it could be third years, second years, first years, teachers, whoever, all part of this group that all have a common interest. And it just gives you another opportunity to integrate. And I think we didn't get to touch upon this, but since you brought up the topic, so what advice would you have for apprentices and young people that do step into a firm and they're so career focused, about getting involved with these initiatives?
Yeah, I would say that getting involved in these sorts of initiatives is not going to do your career harm. It's going to, really allow you to increase the skills that you're building in your sort of career, in your legal career. You're able to, build your teamwork, build your communication. Organising an event is difficult in itself. You're able to work and coordinate things, and in doing that, you're gaining experience in itself. And I think, there is so much opportunity out there, not just in the legal space. But for example, I do a lot of volunteering with a charity called Just Like Us, who have an ambassador program, and we deliver talks across the country in schools. I do mental health work with the NHS Mental Health Service, and all of this sort of pieces together to create my skill set. And it's been able to, in these spaces that I'm being able to, improve my communication, improve my teamwork. And I feel like if you're going to sort of do the apprenticeship, if you're going to really go for it, these extracurriculars really do build on the skills that you gain, in department. So I think for me, it's been really important that I've got involved in these different opportunities. And I would urge any other apprentice to do the same, because it's been truly invaluable.
Yeah, for sure. You mentioned there these the examples like the mental health stuff that you're a part of. They're things that you're certain about from an early age, 17, 18, doing your A levels or even your GCSEs. Like I used to voluntarily mentor GCSE students when I was doing my A levels, and then after my A levels, I continued doing that, and then I even got a job at Explore Learning as a tutor. And it was just that that sort of mentoring people and helping younger students. And now I'm also mentoring as part of Grow Mentoring. But it's those things that you do that you might not think are important, or that you feel like they might not help your career because they don't directly relate, but actually they do, because it says a lot about you, about the type of person you are, what what initiatives are important to you, what you sort of offer, what you're about as a person. And that does get recognized because it's important. Everyone has interests and everyone has things that align with them, whether they're mentoring, whether they're social mobility, whatever it is, actively participating and looking for opportunities to show that you really do care about it.
Yeah, and the only thing I would add is that if you're passionate about something, then find a way to express that passion. I mean, like I didn't know about Just Like Us until halfway through the apprenticeship, but I was looking for opportunities where I could give back to the community, and change maybe someone's experience of being sort of being queer in school, because I know I didn't have I had a bad experience with it. And because of that, I'm then able to maybe change someone else's experience. So I would just say, if you're passionate about something, go and find a way to bring that passion to life. And if that thing doesn't exist already, then create it yourself, and find a way for you to create an avenue for that passion.
Yeah, I totally agree with that. You've summed it up amazingly there. If you have a passion, find a way to express it, and there are opportunities out there for you to do it. It's just a matter of going out there and finding them. And moving on to our final segment, the quick fire round, which we do with all our guests. Oli, before we wrap up, I'm just going to ask you a few straightforward questions. Try not to think too much about them. Just give me whatever comes to the front of your mind.
Okay.
All right, cool. So, coffee or tea?
Coffee.
One word to describe your legal journey so far.
Growth.
Most underrated skill for apprentices?
Conversational skills.
Okay. Most rewarding part of your apprenticeship journey so far?
Extracurricular activities.
Okay. And go-to productivity tip or time-saving hack?
Using AI for summaries of documents.
Okay, cool. And if not law, what else would you be doing?
I would probably be doing some sort of apprenticeship in accounting and finance, or I did have a very big passion for psychology, so I might have gone down that route as well.
Okay, cool. And favorite way to recharge outside of work?
Probably doing sort of the volunteering work that I do, or I love the gym and I love to play badminton. One of those.
Nice. And your final piece of advice in one sentence for junior lawyers?
Do everything, research everything. If an opportunity comes up and it's something you're passionate about, then go for it and make a real difference.
Amazing. Thank you so much, Oli. It's been absolutely amazing recording with you, and I've learned lots, and our viewers and listeners will also have picked up so many pieces of invaluable advice from someone who's an early apprentice and has recently been through the process. So thank you so much for joining us.
Perfect. Thank you for having me.
And if anyone wants to reach out to you for any advice, tips, or just connect, what's the best platform they can do that on?
Probably LinkedIn. Just write Oli Ascott and I'll come up.